Well, again, a little bit dismayed with our current medical system. They kind of want her to stay another few days, 10 to 14, but our insurance won't approve it. So she's going to come home Saturday and she's gonna continue as an outpatient in Pembroke at the Cora place by the pharmacy. So I'm of the old school with medicine. I think the doctor should make a decision about your care, not the insurance companies, but,
Oh, I did, I agree with you.
that's what's
I seen
happening.
her Monday for a brief time,
Mhm.
because she has visitation from 4 to 8, and I told the lady I was from Alabama, which I was, but, I snuck in there and got talked.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that place over there off Eisenhower?
It's all, you turn off the Waters, and then you go on to Cornell Street, and go straight back in there by the Benedictine High School, and it's out on the right.
You can go down Eisenhower where you're at and turn left on C right, and you'll see
Yes.
Rockaway.
Yeah, I know, I'll down see right off of Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking about.
Well, that's where I've been going because I'm getting, the 16 is getting
It's bad.
slow. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I know kind of what they're doing, but I wish they'd finish it.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Yeah,
You said see right. I
it's
know.
on C right, right by Benedictine.
She had a little yellow bar that she was having to step over. I said, pretend that's a cat. She laughed.
We've got kittens,
Oh, no.
5 of them,
Oh,
4, maybe 5. So they just showed up yesterday. They're eating food, so if somebody wants a kitten, take them now.
this is
They're scared
kitten
though.
season, they say. All the rescues are getting bombarded.
All right, Dad, do this word prayer, please.
The Lord, most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this privilege we have to come together and worship you and study your word. We ask that you be with us and we might study those things that make us stronger, make us more courageous in serving you. Be with us, the teacher, help him to say those things that will encourage us most. And that's through Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. After this business about, he's telling them what you agree to and heard, and what you don't agree to or why, that shall be, and where 2 or 3 are gathered together, my men. Peter is prompted to ask him, how many times shall I forgive my brother? What's wrong?
She wants a Bible.
Oh, there's
Yeah, well,
Matthew 18.
so I didn't want it.
18, we'll start with 23. How many times should I forgive my brother if he sins against me? And we defined that Sunday morning, sin and forgive. So it says, I say to you, not up to 7 times, but up to 77 times. For this reason, now here's the story. For this reason, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his slaves. When we have begun to settle them, one who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. 10,000 talents, I didn't look it up because I think I remember last time.
My version says millions of dollars.
It is millions. In fact, it's probably not billions yet, but it's getting there because of inflation. Billions or millions of dollars. But since he did not have the means to repay, his master commanded he be sold along with his wife and children, and all that he had, and repayment be made. That could be done. Okay, that under Roman and Greek law, that could be done. If you owed more than you could pay back, your creditor had the right to sell you and your family into slavery to repay the debt. There's different rules about it. You had to declare the debt paid once that happened. Once you
Went into slavery.
yeah, and they sold all you had, that was your way of declaring bankruptcy, and that was it. It hasn't been that long in history where some very harsh things were done to people who owed money.
Didn't they have debtors prison?
That's what I was gonna say. Under English law, you had debtor's prison, And they did away with it after, well, a while. They used it because it turns out that once you throw somebody in debtor's prison, they can't pay you back at all. Oh, hey, Donna. Oh, she can't hear us. I mean, she can hear us, but
Hey, Donna.
we can't hear her. If you want to say something, Donna, here we are. You can turn this on. No, we only did. There it is. So if you want to say something, Donna, you can now. People can't pay you back. You know, single mothers have this problem today. They can actually put the baby's father for non-payment of child support in prison,
Don't she get
but he
anything
can
out of
get anything out of him. Once you do, unless he has something, and then you can go to prison and
it?
take it.
They're gainfully employed.
But, yeah, if they're gainfully employed, you're better off doing that, garnish their wages and stuff like that, which is easier to do. Well, the slave, in verse 26, the slave fell to the ground and prostrated himself before him, saying, "Have patience with me, I will repay you everything." And the master of that slave felt compassion, he released him and forgave him the debt. Wow.
Good man.
I had compassion, I'm gonna forgive you this debt of millions of dollars. I mean, that's the debt of some small countries today. That they would forgive it immediately. Greece is having that trouble right now. They're owing so much money all over Europe. They're thinking about kicking them out of the European common market because they owe so much. And these debts that they settle here, you may not choose to put yourself into debt. This was like the old sharecropper system, or the old, around here, turpentine business. You wind up staying on the farm or staying in the turpentine forest because you owe too much. You're bound to land because you owe.
That ended up being the 10,000 talents was 3.48 billion.
Which you're doing on the internet, so that's probably right. Pretty close to right.
That's, yeah, it's dated in 2015, so it's probably even higher.
It's probably even higher now. 3.28 million
Yeah, 3.48 billion.
billion
Billion.
dollars.
So millions of dollars would be a good translation.
Well, it would have been. Now it's billions of dollars.
Yeah, so billions.
Due to inflation. I mean, he's picking a number here that people are going, wow, what would I do if I owed that much? Well, in verse 28, but that slave who went out and found one of his fellow slaves who owed him 100 denarii. Look that up now. I'm thinking around $20.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's a lot less than that.
It used to be less.
Billion dollars.
I'm gonna guess around $20. And he seized him and began to choke him, saying, "Pay back what you owe." So his fellow slave fell to the ground and began to plead with him, saying, "Have patience with me and I will repay you." But he was unwilling and went and threw him in prison until he should pay back what he owed. Wow. What a big difference. You've got two debtors and two lien holders in this.
You got some like a fellow who's forgot what he'd been forgiven of, just like we forget what Christ has forgiven us for.
And I think that's the point he's trying to make. People owe you, and it's true, they do. But do people owe you as much as God has forgiven you for what you've done in the past, or for what you have been in the past?
And this isn't the first place, I mean, it's just other places, too.
You find it?
$2.72 US dollars.
Big difference.
$2.72.
That's heir of the college. It's heir of money, maybe.
Denarii? Denarii is actually Greek. Denarii is a plural of denarius. I wonder if we go back and not only look, because I cannot possibly value what God has forgiven us of, but, it's huge. I mean, it is billions
Yeah,
and
after
billions.
all, he shed his blood and went to the cross for all of us, you know?
But think about what we owe others. Okay? Think about it for just a minute, about what wonderful things have been done for us by other people in the past. One of my favorite movies, starring one of my least favorite actors now, because he ruined a Netflix program, because he kept off sexual harassment and stuff, but Kevin Spacey.
Oh, yeah, I like Kevin Bacon.
I do too, but he ruined House of Cards because he did something, they had to film the last season without him, and it could have gone further, and I love, we were really enjoying it. But he and Haley Joel Osment and some woman that's pretty fake, that I can't remember her name, they made a movie called Pay It Forward. I love that movie, and I love the idea of it. Have y'all seen it?
No, I haven't seen it, but I'll try to.
Just the
Oh,
old
no,
one.
House of
It
Cards.
is old, no, not House of Cards.
Oh.
You would like that. It's called Pay It Forward.
Pay it forward.
Wait,
Oh, pay it forward.
No,
Pay, right?
Pay.
I'm sorry.
The whole idea
Pretty old.
is that, and this is a true story. Haley Joel Osment played this young boy who, and I can't remember the situation, but something good was done for him. And so he did a good deed and helped out someone else. And the only thing he asked in return is for them to do a good deed for someone else. And it wound up that one guy who received something so wonderful to him, I don't think it cost that much, that the next person in need he found, he just gave him a car. Gave him the keys to his car. A reporter tracked down. She saw this good deed. I think that was it. And she tracked down to see where it started. Somebody, I don't know who it was, did this for me, and that's why I did it. She would find that person by the description and location and stuff, and she would find out, and said, well, why did you do this? I said, because somebody did something wonderful for me and asked me to pay it forward. Oddly enough, the tragedy is, and this is exactly what did happen, the young boy was caught in a school being bullied by other children, and he fell and was killed before he ever made it to adulthood. They made a thing in the movie about his teacher who met his mom, and the mom was in an abusive relationship, and the teacher and the mom married, and he became his father, and everything was going well, and then he died. I don't know how much of that part is true. I do know he did die tragically. But the thing is, and this is this story in reverse, do something good for someone else, expecting nothing in return, only ask them to do something good for others. Now that movie has changed my life, honestly. I have done that. I told you the story. One time I was on my way to Bridgeton to get gas at what was the only place then to get it at Kent's, IGA. I ran out in the middle of that intersection in that truck of mine, that red Explorer. And so I said, oh man, what do I do? So I got out and started pushing it myself. And it was moving because it was on. And all of a sudden the guy said, hang on, I'll help you out. And so I turned around to the side because I was exhausted already. Said, thank you so much. And I think a couple of other buddies pulled over their trucks and helped us and pushed me over to Ken's. And I put gas in my truck and went home, came back home. It was after Don and I were married. And so it hadn't been that long ago. But then Donna and I got behind this guy coming back from Savannah 204 up here at Turner's Corners, where it's kind of going uphill. And he had a little car, and something was wrong with it. It wouldn't start. And so he was pushing it, and he was in a place where there were guardrails on each side, so he couldn't get it off the side of the road. But like if you remember, if you go up, you go down, and then you can pull into the. So I said, darling, I'm gonna stop the car. I put the thing on, and I got out of the driver's seat, said, you need to drive. And she said, I didn't know what you were doing. She got out of the car, got the driver, and I went over and I pushed this guy's car up that hill. We both did. He said, thank God you showed up. And then I got into the top of the hill and I said, get in and let it coast down. And then just turn into that whole thing. He said, thank you so much. And that's what he did. I don't know who he was. You know, all I asked him to do is to do something nice for somebody else, like somebody has for me. And I wonder if all of us, instead of worrying about what's owed us for the kindnesses that we've done for others, if we would worry more about, if you pay me back, give it to somebody who needs it.
I have a book that I still got. It's got a lot of, people's sayings and what, some famous person has said and everything. And the one line, little thing that, is always stuck in my head was, it says, expect little, give much.
Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of folks have done. Jerry Clower, I told you the story about the
About the
dog.
dog, yeah.
He said, since then, I've been looking for a boy with a hurt dog. Look for people to help. Look for folks to help. You know how many times I've given a kid, I don't have to now because it's all free for some reason, but I've given a kid $1 for lunch money. So many times at school, if they were hungry. Or helped out one here and there. I mean, there was one little boy, I lost him this year. He did something he got expelled for, but he's in the 11th grade, and I had him in the 9th grade, and I'm telling you, this kid would not grow up and behave. He was plotting my death by Christmas. The only way he passed was, that's when we got the COVID vacation. We went home, and things stopped counting as much, and the little stuff he did kind of counted a lot more, so he passed barely. I didn't teach him his sophomore year, and he was in my class this year, and I thought, no. He turned into, he would come to class early and pick up paper off the floor. You knew that's a pet peeve of mine. The kids leave garbage on the floor, and pick it up and throw it away. Finally, after a couple of weeks, I asked him, I called his name and I said, why are you doing this? He said, I know I was a jerk in the 9th grade, and I'm sorry. He said, and I knew this was something that you really felt, so I figured I would help out when I came in. He did something later somewhere else that he got expelled for. I had no part in it, so I kind of cried when it happened. Because he and I had become very, very close. He picked a seat right beside my desk where he would always be there when I was sitting down doing something. And a special ed child and a gifted child sat beside him, and they liked him. And when he needed help, we all three would help him, on something that we did in class. And he would always find a way to help us. I thought, wow, this is one of those kids I saw on the roll, and I went, there's no way I'm going to go to the principal and beg for him to be put somewhere else. I'm glad I didn't, The thing is, we paid it forward. I was nice to him in the 9th grade. Other teachers kicked him out of the class. They had administrators remove him. I didn't. In the 9th grade, he was being such a jerk. I kept putting up with him and said, you need to sit down and quiet. He wasn't much better last year, from what I understand, but I didn't teach him. And this year, he wasn't that much better, but he was for me. He changed. He would even say, if he didn't hear what I said, he'd say, sir, and that, from him, that was like your majesty. Because he was that kind of a kid. I really loved him. I really did this year. But you pay it forward. Who knows? One of these kids might remember something. I went over to Parker's in Bushton the other day. And I went in to get Donna some chicken gizzards. I won't touch them, but she wanted some. And I got me a wrap or something to eat. And I just went in and all of a sudden I turned around and there's this big old redneck guy. I never saw him before. He said, Dr. Holloway, right? I said, yeah. He said, I saw you come in as I was leaving. I just had to come back in and say, you made a big difference in my life. And now I couldn't say, who are you? You know, because now it's too late. I can't say that. That would be embarrassing. I don't know who he is. I don't remember ever seeing Charles Vaughn. But he said, you made such a difference. You were a great role model. I've thought about you a lot, almost every day since I left school. Thank you. I thought to myself, wow, you know, he paid it forward. He didn't stop. He didn't know about his own thing, but he let somebody know. And to be honest with you, it was somebody who really needed that right. Pay it forward. Haley Joe Osmond, I think it's Kevin Spacey. It's in it.
Okay, pay it forward,
Pay it forward.
I'll have to look it up.
So once this guy does this, in verse 31, so when his fellow slaves saw what had happened, they were deeply grieved and came and reported to the master all that had happened. You know, his fellow slaves, the other servants, folks, this is, I don't think slavery, I think it's more tenant farmers, something like that. But then his fellow servants, they told the master what had happened. Then summoning him, his master said to him, you wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way that I had mercy on you? And his master, moved with anger, handed him over to the torturers until he would repay all that was owed him. My heavenly Father will also do the same to you if each of you does not forgive his brother from your heart. We have been forgiven of so much by God and really by others. I mean, in my job, I see the way kids act, and I remember a time when I was in school, what a jerk I was too. You know? And I thought to myself, those teachers put up with me during a lot of this stuff. I mean, I wasn't bad all the time, but I had my share of whippings in school. I had my share of going out and picking up trash when I was in high school because I misbehaved. If they can put up with me and turn me into whatever man I am today, I can put up with this. You know, I'm not going to encourage bad behavior, but sometimes I will say, no, that's the best you can do today, that's the best you can do, and move on, you know? And then some won't be confrontational. I don't like that. I'm sorry you feel that way. Sit down and be quiet. That's what we do. You know? And one of them said a nasty word. I went out and got Mama. I said, you want to tell your mama what you said? No. I said, well, I'll tell her. I told her exactly what y'all said. And then she lied and said, I didn't say it that way. I said, well, she did. You believe it or not. We'll take care of this when we get home. Never had trouble with her again. But the thing is, she's really not. She didn't go to ISS or suspended, which is what you would have. I try my best to be as patient and nice to these children as I possibly can be. And through the years, I've seen other people in my position. They'll call the office immediately. They'll leave in write-ups, you know, in the office. I have got 3. One girl lied to me, skipped class, got hurt. And then 2 boys who thanked me later for writing them up. Was doing parking lot duty. One of them jumped on top of the other one's car on the hood, and the other one kept running, so they played around. And the first thing I did was make him cry. Do you know how dangerous that is? I have gone to funerals for kids like you. I don't want to go to yours. Go to the office and wait on me. Do it now. Don't say a word. I was scared to death when I saw them doing it. And they went, and I went down to the office and talked to the principal and said, why are they here? I said, tell
Thinking Duke's a hazard in the parking lot.
them. They said, oh man. And so he said, I got it from here. Gave him, ISS for it, to never do it again. Because he had a couple of stories in his childhood, telling too. You know, there's some times I lucked out too, so I don't want to see y'all splattered all over the parking lot. This guy, he doesn't sell his family into slavery. He doesn't sell him into slavery, but he handed him over to the torturers. I don't know what that means, but I don't want to know. And whoever those guys are, I don't want to have nothing to know. I've seen a lot of old movies about, you know, ancient times and what torturers do. I don't have nothing to do with it.
Sounds like
Send
Carol.
send him, mine says send him to prison to be tortured.
Sounds like Carol.
Because they'll take care of
It's
him.
horrible. I mean, because
You will not get out.
what those, no, not after those millions, there's no way to earn any money, I mean, or billions now. Inflation's kind of got us, but, honestly, whatever that means, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. I'm a big sissy when it comes to pain. I don't like it. People brag about how much pain they can withstand. Not me.
Does it put a different light though on forgiving? Because mine says, you forgive your brother from your heart. Not just what we hear now is forgive them, let it go, you know, don't worry about it. Kind of for you to forgive. But this seems a little bit more intense.
And it certainly seems a little bit more that you mean it.
Exactly, not just a forget and move on kind of thing, or forgive and move on, but
Which I'm
don't forget.
gonna do, because of what you said, something I always said I won't do. I did hear this on the news this morning. I don't know any of the people, so I don't really know what went on, but one guy was in Chatham County that, got the benefit of this. The president yesterday commuted the sentences of 70-something people,
78, I think.
78 people accused of non-violent drug offenses, or convicted of non-violent drug offenses. And this brings up a question to me about our American judicial system. First of all, what's its purpose? And second of all, how much time in prison do you give for certain crimes? And it seems to be pretty much arbitrary. Some people in some states will get away with the same thing somebody else does and serve life in prison. You know, or they'll get probation, or they'll get this, that, and the other. And I'm not gonna comment, is it their socioeconomic status or race or whatever it is. I don't know that it's any of those things, but I do know that's true. But the problem that I have with it, I have no control over that. The problem that I have with it is how many people actually seem to be glad that they are getting that kind of treatment. Church people. And how many church people are running to politicians today, trying to increase the penalties for wrongdoing?
They're probably they're doing some wrong with themselves.
And is that something we as churches should be involved in? You know, I have heard several people say that our justice system is broken. I think it's probably just about has to be in certain ways. I think it can always be improved.
It's just like Clint Eastwood said in one of his, I think it was Dirty Harry movie I watched one time. Somebody was bad mouthing the government or the system. He says, I know it's not perfect. He says, but I'll defend it to the best of my ability.
I believe ours is probably the best that there is in the world. However, I do not believe it's perfect. I think there can
No, I
always
don't believe it's perfect.
be room for improvement. I think that's what America is that citizens come together and do so.
Well, it's not the justice system, it's the legislative system, because they've become lawyers,
A nurse came in.
It sounded like it was in front of me, behind me.
There's
I did too.
sticker right there.
Hey, Donna.
Or come back and hang out later. Netflix and popcorn.
She probably touched her phone, that's what she's using.
But you know, we have laws, and it's not up to the judicial system to
No,
legislate from the bench, but
they do.
it's become a system of lawyers in the government that wants 5,000 pages to make it crazy and not followable, but, too dependent on the appellate courts, but, you know, if we don't have legislation that mirrors what we want as a society, and as a rule, people are usually fairly merciful. You know, they don't often, unless the crime is heinous or something, you know, that they do want to recognize, because when they made those laws for nonviolent marijuana mostly used, was to deter it. And it quickly spiraled out of position because Peachtree City, it was according to how much money the fathers had and stuff. And I mean, that was obvious and unapologetic too.
You know, it's, and I kind of think they're right about this, and the only reason I think they're right, community, is, yes, they did do something illegal, we know that the sentence does not fit the crime. And like you said, if you have enough money, you can get out of it.
And it should be addressed where it belongs, instead of idiotic things that are going on now for years.
But it seems like.
That's not the Constitution, that's just the law.
Yeah, it seems like politicians seem to find a hobby, right, and keep raising the stakes on things that people are pretty much against when those laws were put. Most people were pretty much non-violent folks. And now, I think we've done too much with that, because there are people who actually, and I know of them, truly need that in a medical way. Because it is a very,
Just hope
very
so.
good treatment for certain things. I've seen it,
Most,
and now you,
almost all states have kind of dealt with the medicinal, but,
they're fighting it right now.
That's not- well,
You know.
politics, not law. But, you know, you and I both know, when you break the law, there's consequences.
Right.
And we should pay more attention to our positioning judges for their value instead of their political
Right.
means. And that's become another political issue.
Mhm.
But what do we want as the people? What do we want with our judicial system? I don't want them to legislate from the bench, ever.
Yeah, and I'm not,
That's misused power.
well, they're actually supposed to interpret the law as it stands.
Exactly. But that's not what's happening.
Well, I think it's because the Eighth Amendment has been thrown away. And what people don't realize is that our Constitution in the Eighth Amendment says, Bill of Rights, that we cannot have punishment that is cruel and unusual. Well, in my humble opinion, there is no such thing as punishment that is not both cruel and unusual. Now, if you spank your kid, is that cruel?
It won't be unusual if you do it to all your kids.
Well, the thing
If
is,
they
though,
all know, if you touch
I'm not
the hot
talking
stove.
about as a punishment, I'm not talking about how it's administered. I'm talking about is the very act of hitting a child on the behind cruel? It is. Well, of course it is. I mean, to them, I mean, that's pain that you're deliberately inflicting.
Well, this would prove,
I'm not saying it's wrong.
this would prove to disprove that, though. It says, it's comparing it to hell, it's comparing it to our Heavenly Father, which is God,
Mhm.
in His holy anger,
Mhm.
is gonna do the same thing to you.
Right, and I'm not
And it's
saying,
torture.
and I'm not saying that what parents are doing is wrong, but to me, any punishment that you give, if it's a punishment, it is cruel. And it's certainly unusual because what parent spanks their kid 24 hours a day?
Nobody.
I mean, it's common, you know what I'm saying? So it's unusual and it's cruel, that's punishment. The thing is, what the idea is, and the reason that that's in the Constitution is right about that time in England and Washington and Jefferson and Adams, all these guys, they heard about this. I used to know the guy's name. He did something. And so he was consigned to prison for the rest of his life. However, the judge added this to his sentence, that every year on the anniversary of his crime, he was to be taken out and publicly horsewhipped and then put back in his prison cell for the rest of his life. That's what the founding fathers meant by cruel and unusual punishment, is that it is not for the rehabilitation of, or even the punishment of the individual, it is for the satisfaction of the citizens.
There again, this seems to disprove that in its nature, and it's more of a warning than a merciful ending.
I'm
It's
not
telling
talking-
you this is what's going to happen
Well, I'm not
if you
speaking
don't
to
behave.
our own civil laws. I'm just saying how ours fit in. And certainly, the promise of eternal damnation is a punishment
Yeah,
that is both cruel and completely unusual.
yeah.
So,
The rich man,
but the two are not supposed to be the same. Civil government is not supposed to punish people in the same way.
long ago,
And that's not even in the Bible. I'm talking about according to our own Constitution.
and you know, God's the only one that has the right to, say, judge at the resurrection. You know, well, I believe the Bible teaches that when you die, you know where you are going when you die.
Right. And what I'm saying is not that, now that is completely designed as cruel and unusual punishment. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that our law is not supposed to be by our own choice. Our civil law, that has nothing to do with the Bible. In fact, that's another thing that our Constitution says, that our laws can have nothing to do with the Bible.
They say that God is judging who's just.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's just and righteous.
And I think that's probably what was in the idea of the constitutional framework.
Are you talking about division of church and state?
I'm talking,
Because our laws were set up before that, in as much as what we were independently, even though we still belonged to England, we still had rules and judgments, and we were taught to read by the Bible.
Mhm.
We were taught to set up our governments by the Bible.
and if
So,
that's,
We followed that in suit.
but there's
Church
no
and
such
state's
thing,
not the same thing.
there's no such thing in the Constitution as the division of church and state.
Right.
If they work together.
It's not there. In fact, that's what it's supposed to be. It just says that the government shall not establish a state religion,
Right,
nor prohibit the free exercise thereof
right.
by its
Nothing to
citizens.
do with legislature.
And nothing to do with any of that. And certainly,
And our laws should be as
if
such.
our people have, and I hope they do, Christian values, that's going to be reflected in our laws.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be the laws that are right and wrong according to citizens of the United States nationally and of an area local. That should be, Savannah has just made a law. You can no longer tether a dog outside. You can only use a runner that has to be 10 feet
Only one dog per.
Only one dog per lead, and the dog must be spayed or neutered when it happens. Now, that's how I got my little Samantha. The mama dog was tied up outside, and I would get anything for my time with Samantha. Big old huge pit bull that wasn't very smart, but she was so sweet. But the thing is, that's the reflection of the citizens of Savannah. They have decided that, their representatives have decided that. We have not made that decision in Bryan County. I wish we would. I wish a lot of that would stop, but I don't think it's that much of a problem around here anymore.
If you have a society that doesn't have laws and following through, you won't have a society.
We have anarchy.
You have to have punishment for wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be repaid.
You see, our Constitution, which we need to define that more, says that we won't get into punishment, that we will get into reform. But most of what we've done in our history has been punishment.
Yeah, I can
So
touch
that may actually be what we want as a people. I'm not criticizing one way or the other, or advocating one way or the other. I'm just saying that many of our ideals are not parallel to our laws. And they need to be.
Just like if you're saying, if you discipline your children, you suspect that they will grow up to be good adults because they had rules and they had punishment to guide them, but some people will decide to do whatever they want.
And y'all know I'm a very big advocate of discipline the child, because don't bring them to me in the 11th grade and expect me to do it. You know?
I want him to bring it to the family. I want us as Christians to believe what this Bible says, to conduct ourselves, to comport ourselves in public. This is the whole end game to me.
And I'm wondering,
That we do this and the laws will have no import. If I conduct myself, you conduct yourself. And it's the issues that are right and wrong. It's not whether you like blue and she likes green. Those are trivial matters of getting along. But right and wrong is right and wrong.
right, and
And they made that law for the tether and the leash because people were misusing it.
mhm,
Not for the people that obeyed,
Yeah.
but it was because, and that's how almost every law comes about, because one citizen wants to gather up his people and impose a position.
mhm.
I bet more than half of our laws are strictly for that, not for right and wrong, but for exercise of power. And I want to see me believe in this Bible and me believe what it says and go and be amongst people who believe it
And act accordingly.
and act accordingly.
If we all did that, there would absolutely be no.
It'd be a paradise for sure. And we're humans, I understand
What
that.
I'm saying is,
But we should back it
I don't think
more.
we would be perfect, but if those were our ideals and those were the ideals of everyone. we would
But
need-
isn't that the
we would
goal?
need government and it would be the law.
Well,
Isn't that the goal?
Aaron came home about third grade, second grade, saying that you can't spank me. And because they told me that you can't spank me, I said, well, I'll take you to school and spank you in front of them. And if I go to jail, I'll go happy, but you're gonna get a spanking. But
Ben told me that too.
I said, you get a spanking.
I was a little bit more vocal.
I laughed at it, you got
What
mad.
One time during church, Kim took Aaron out and all the way down the aisle, he said, don't spank me, don't spank me, don't spank me.
He grabbed the jamb of the door and was holding on. I said, just let go, I want to spank you. And I spanked him anyway. And he said, you lied. I said, I know.
Little boy who was misbehaving in church, and his mother, he knew he was gonna get a hammer when he got out, and so they were sitting down at the front, and as he was going out the back door, he yelled back to everybody, y'all please pray for me.
Ben was used for an example. One of my friends taught in Sunday school teachers in Atlanta, Greater Atlanta Christian schools and stuff. And she used Ben always as examples because He was the sweetest little boy
Mhm.
and real kind looking and very kind, but he said the most outrageous things that he was in quite a few of their lessons.
She made examples.
But my point is, and you tell me, I'm not sure on this point.
There's a couple of here things I'm not sure about.
Right, but one of the things is, this is sort of, to me, putting a requirement on us Christians,
Mhm.
not secular, not maybe even newcomers, but it is a warning. Great big flashing light.
Mhm.
You do this and this what happens. Now we should find our communal agreements
Mhm.
The one thing I have.
and continue it, because I think it will follow us throughout our entire life of finding out how we can agree.
I think it started off in a few lessons ago in this very same chapter. Forgiveness
Right.
is very, very important.
Mhm.
And it should grow as a Christian grows, and God will judge us on the basis of how
You have
we
forgiven
have forgiven others.
It's hard though, when you have somebody that is forgiven much, like the first one, and he got away, you would say scot-free, basically. He got a golden ticket. And then one guy that didn't do much, and he got thrown in prison because of it. And
Well,
it's hard to see someone else that sins a lot, and then you try your best not to sin,
It's
and they
an,
gonna be skinned.
it's an example though to you, don't be that guy choking him,
No, you can tell that.
right?
Well, yeah.
That's
You
true.
can say to yourself, I don't
You
want
can
to
do like I told somebody
You're
one
right.
time, there's one of his relatives, and I said, you know, you have, your so-and-so has been a great example for me. And he looked at me like, well, what do you mean? I says, he's an example of what I don't want to be.
All
Yeah,
right.
well, I never thought about
We
it.
got
Not
to quit
be
here, but I think we found where we need to
And
start on
Romans
Sunday morning.
12:17 says,
What's your invitation, son?
you're the Lord.
71.
71.
Do not keep yourself.
Page 71.
871? Oh, okay, I thought we had an 8.
I'm telling her.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I trust you, Lucy, I was just gonna go right there.
No.
71, in a few moments, we're gonna sing the song, one verse of a song, and stand and respond to the Lord's will. Come, as together we stand as we sing.
She said.
Hark the gentle
Voice
voice
of
of
Jesus
Jesus
falleth tenderly upon your ear. Sweet is cry of love and pity calleth. Turn and listen, stay and hear. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, lean upon your dear Lord's rest. Ye that labor and are heavy laden, come and I will give you rest. Very much, Mrs. Sweet.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this time you came here to let us worship, sing songs to your name. We ask you to bless everyone in this congregation, and may this congregation continue until you decide. We ask this in your holy devout name. Amen.
Amen. All right, we're not eating Sunday.
My,
This will be the first one in 2 weeks. we have.
favorite California movie, it could have been a true story. There's, you ever watched The Air Up There?
No.
Oh, watch it sometime. It's a good comedy and it's a good, kind of grabs you by the heart.
Remember Donna, she's coming home Saturday and she's gonna do a rehab at Pembroke for an hour a day. Remember the kids at school, now it's gonna be end of time and now it comes to GOCs and finals. So,
Yeah, it's always me.
yeah,
What's the last name?
I don't remember.
I thought you would have. one.
Lydia.
Isn't it? And graduation is the 20, isn't it?
Is Kelly graduating this year?
No,
No, he's got another year to go.
yeah.
So we don't have any graduates this year?
No. Let's see, graduation is going to be on the wrong month, on the 21st. 20th is the last day of school for everybody, except for us. 21st is graduation. This is a senior class that just needs to graduate. Harold Rhodes used to be our principal. He used to have a meeting with seniors the first of the year. Connor Leggett? Connor.
Can't say his last name, John.
Oh,
Stephanie.
no,
It's next year?
it's next year.
I thought he was older.
I think he's a junior. Olson graduated year before.
Yeah,
No, he graduated during the COVID.
yeah.
I'm not sure about Connor.
He's getting close.
He's getting close. If it's not this year, it's next. Harold Rhodes would have a meeting with seniors. He would say, I love you. You're great. We all love every one of you, but you got to go. And they do. This year's seniors, they got to go. It's time. Become an American taxpayer.
To come over and speak to you.
That's all we got.
That's what I'm trying.
Yeah.
Donna, you there?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, even in a family, you have children,
She made
you
it with
have
her
to
nurse,
make the
so.
discipline.
Hi, Donna.
Hello, Donna.
Fair.
God bless
you.
We love you.
I blowed her a kiss.
Praying for
She made
you.
it with
That's okay.
nurses and
She
stuff.
can hear us
The
though.
meanest mother in the
Can you
whole.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, baby.
Bless
Hey, hey everyone.
Hey, can you hear everybody that's
Go
here?
ahead and do it.
I can see you. Is that what
I'll
we
receive you all the way to the hot car.
There you go.
Oh, hold on.
Hey.
146.
That's
Yeah.
what you trust in people.
Right.
When they die.
I miss y'all.
Yeah, we heard you talking to your nurse a while ago.
Hey. Hey. I'm working on it.
I know.
Yeah, they had her
What you tell her?
going through the ringer.
What now?
What you gonna tell her?
What, I do what? Oh, nothing. We just heard you talk in the
background.
background. I turned you back on mute.
This is her last year. She'll be going to high
I'm
school.
glad I probably don't have enough to talk to.
Okay.
Good.
I'll talk to you in a little bit, okay, baby?
I wish you
I
here.
forgot what she got. She got some kind of
Thank you
trophy.
so far for coming to see me.
Okay.
When Eddie plays soccer, she
I
always.
love y'all.
Look at
And
you,
even
baby.
other teams
Bye.
complain.
You said she loved y'all.
Love you too,
So Kelly was telling me that a kid he knew from another school was saying that girl. That girl that said that race girl, she controlled the field. She was all over it. She just. Said, yes.
Bye-bye, baby. I'll talk to you in a minute.
I'll be careful on that road.
On the Helena Expressway.
Yeah, you got that right.
Good night, y'all. Hope you join us again. Oh, you're still joining us. There we go.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Mm.
Oh,